Making games is difficult. That's just the reality of things. Unless you're some kind of genius and know something that the rest of us don't, but otherwise it's fairly hard. We started our game development journey bright-eyed, optimistic, and taken with the artistry of games, genuinely excited by the idea that we were about to create something meaningful and interactive, something that people could experience and connect with. We were ready to tackle every obstacle in our path, confident that passion, creativity, and enough persistence would be enough to carry us through whatever challenges came our way. And while all of this is very much true, don't get me wrong, it really is, persistence and willpower are actually two of the most important things you can have while working on a game, or really anything. On that note, there are definitely a lot of things we wish we knew or understood much earlier that would have prepared us for this journey a bit better. So today we want to share 5 things we wish we had known before starting our game. But before we begin, for those of you that are new here, we're making Water Me and You, a genre-blending cozy co-op adventure that mixes exciting and dynamic gameplay elements from games like It Takes Two with the cozy and relaxing aspects of games like Animal Crossing. So, 5 things we wish we knew before starting our game. Number 1 is, making games takes a lot of time. And that's okay. In the beginning, everything feels fast, almost deceptively so, because you're working with ideas that are still simple, systems that haven't yet collided with each other, and problems that haven't yet fully revealed themselves. You prototype something, it works, and it feels like progress is happening quickly. This is because you're trying to prove a general hypothesis for your game, and you've not gotten into the nitty-gritty of all of it. But as development goes on, things start to slow down in a way that can feel frustrating if you're not expecting it. That happens because of the thing I mentioned earlier. You're now fleshing out this idea, working out the details, and testing them further. What starts to happen is what you thought would take a couple of days ends up taking a couple of weeks. What you thought would take a couple of weeks ends up taking a couple of months. And what initially looked like a small, contained change suddenly becomes this game-altering idea, and you haven't slept in days, not sure what day of the week it is, and you should probably have a glass of water. Jokes aside, because that was clearly a joke. For example, if you change something in the level, shorten or extend a section of it, that might affect the pacing, which then affects how a mechanic feels, which then might also require visual changes, and suddenly what seemed like a small tweak turns into a chain reaction across the entire game. That's kinda exactly what happened to us. We knew we had to change up our opening level in the game. We just had no idea how big of a change that would lead to. And then, of course, the entire level changed. But if you want to hear more about that, what we did and why we did it, check out our previous devlog. But yeah, everything is connected in ways you don't fully realize at the beginning. And early on, this can feel discouraging, because it constantly feels like you're slowing down or not making enough progress. But in reality, this is the point where your game becomes more real, more complex, and more refined. Making games takes time. More importantly, making something that actually feels good to play takes even more time. And that's okay. Number 2 is, you will redo things a lot. In the beginning, we really believed that once we built something, we would mostly just polish it, improve it slightly, and then move on to the next thing. But as development went on, we realized that almost nothing stays the same as it was in its first version. You build something, you test it, and it feels like it works, at least at a surface level, but once you spend more time with it, or once somebody else plays it, God forbid, you start noticing small issues. Something feels slightly off, maybe the pacing isn't quite right, maybe the mechanic isn't as intuitive as you thought, or maybe the whole experience just doesn't feel as engaging as you expected it to. And that's when you start changing things. At first, those changes are small, but over time they become bigger. What starts as a tweak can turn into a redesign, and sometimes a redesign turns into completely rebuilding something from scratch. We've had a couple of cases where we redesigned entire segments, not because we wanted to, but because each version revealed something new that we didn't understand before. And that's the important part. Every version teaches you something. Iteration is not a waste of time, it's how the game improves. You're not going backwards, even if it feels like it sometimes. You're refining, understanding, and slowly getting closer to something that actually works. And one of the most important things we had to learn here is not to get too attached to any one version of anything, because the thing you spent the most time on might be the exact thing that needs to change. That's precisely what happened to us when we realized we had to redesign our main characters. We loved the old versions, but they simply didn't fit what our game had become at that point. And if you want to hear about that series of unfortunate events, you can check out our other devlog. Another bit of shameless promo, but the point is, always reevaluate and question whether you're holding on to something because you've invested too much into it, or because you think it's the best thing for your game. Number 3. Players will surprise you. Constantly. One of the biggest shifts in perspective comes when you let somebody else play your game for the first time. Because no matter how clear something feels to you, players will experience it completely differently. You spend hours, days, or even weeks working on the same level, the same mechanics, the same flow. Everything becomes obvious to you. You know where to go, you know how things work, and you understand the reasoning behind every decision you've made. But players don't have any of that context. They're seeing your game for the first time without any of that background knowledge, and because of that, they approach it in completely different ways. They might miss things that you thought were impossible to miss. They might get confused in areas that felt completely clear to you. They might use mechanics in ways you never expected, and sometimes they'll do something that makes you realize that your entire assumption about how something works is wrong. At first, this can feel frustrating because it feels like players are not getting it. But over time, you start to realize that this is actually one of the most valuable parts of development because it shows you where your game isn't communicating clearly enough. It shows you the difference between what you intended and what players actually experience. And the only way to discover that is through testing, because the version of the game in your head is never the same as the version players actually play. Number 4 is letting go. This is probably one of the most difficult lessons you have to learn. Honestly, not just if you're a game developer, but no matter what you do, and also not just from a professional standpoint, but also a personal one as well. And that is, it's okay to throw things away. This doesn't mean that what you've created isn't good enough or that it's meaningless. It just might not be the right thing at the right time. When you spend a lot of time working on something, it's natural to become attached to it. You've invested effort into it, you've solved problems to make it work, you've shaped it into something that feels complete, and because of that, the idea of removing it feels wrong. It feels like you're losing progress, but you're not. As we've said before, iteration is everything, and it's the only way things get better. Our game Water Me and You previously had a shared camera, and our entire game design and level design were formed around it, shaped by it. But at a certain point, we realized that it was no longer the right thing for the game. And so we went split screen, and it changed everything, and I really do mean everything. It was technically going back to square one, but it was ultimately very much the right decision. So imagine not just all the ideas that went straight into the garbage bin, but also all the things that were already done and in-game. But like I said, it was definitely the right thing to do, even though it was extremely difficult. Also, and this is aimed towards that one specific person, don't worry, we will of course have sections where the players have a shared camera. But the point is that keeping something that doesn't work just because you've spent time on it will hurt the game much more in the long run. Letting go is not about throwing away progress. It's about refining the experience and making sure that everything that stays in the game serves a purpose. And sometimes the best thing you can do for your game is to remove the thing you've worked on the hardest. And finally, number 5. Don't rush to hit milestones, but sometimes do. Milestones are a double-edged sword. Throughout development, there are always milestones that you're working towards. Events, deadlines, showcases, there's always something ahead that creates a sense of urgency, and those milestones can be incredibly useful. They give you direction, they push you to make decisions, they force you to finish things that might otherwise stay in progress for far too long. But at the same time, they can also create pressure to show something before it's truly ready. We experienced this ourselves while preparing for Steam Next Fest. We were very close to participating, and we really wanted to be a part of it. It felt like an important opportunity at the time, something we didn't want to miss. But as we got closer, we had to ask ourselves a very simple question. Is this the version of the game we want people to see? And the honest answer was no. Not because it was bad, but because it wasn't where we wanted it to be yet. So we made the decision to wait. Because rushing something just to hit a milestone can mean showing a version of your game that doesn't represent its true potential. At the same time, completely avoiding deadlines isn't the solution either. Without some sort of pressure, it's easy to overthink things, over-iterate, and delay decisions that need to be made. So the real challenge is finding that balance, understanding when a milestone is helping your game move forward and when it's pushing you to compromise something important. And yeah, those are the 5 things we really wish we knew before starting our game. Of course, there are at least 5 more, and then 5 more after that, but I guess that's just part of the process. If there's one thing we've definitely learned so far, it's that making games is messy, unpredictable, and sometimes feels like you're going in circles. But every mistake, every iteration, every "why did we do this" moment is still pushing the game forward in some way. And honestly, we wouldn't trade that. If you're also working on a game or thinking about starting one, just know that all of this is completely normal, even if it doesn't feel like it at the time. And if you made it all the way to the end, tell us in the comments. We're genuinely curious how many of you survived the entire video. Wishlist, water me and you on Steam if you'd like to support us, and share this video with someone you think would find it useful, or with somebody you'd like to play our game with. Hope you guys have a great day, and we'll see you in the next one.